This is the Louie Tee Network.
The Redskins Report. Washington Redskins.
I'm back. Man, it feels good to be home. Feels good to be home, baby. Feels good to be home. Did you miss me? Welcome, all my fellow Redskin brethren and sisterin. I am your man and resident Redskins fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me. Welcome back, family. It's that time again. Had a nice little break. Been covering the whole league. But there's no place like home. And so, let's get right to the proceedings this evening. Free agency on the horizon. Let's talk Redskins football. New head coach. First, let's put 2013 to rest quickly. Look back at that season. What went wrong? Put it to bed and move forward. So, 2013 tumultuous season, to say the least. A lot of expectations for all of us as Redskins fans. Did not go the way that we planned. And we kind of saw this kind of coming in the offseason with Robert Griffin III and the Mike Shanahan saga. And we all knew Robert wasn't going to be 100% healthy. What we did not know and what we could not account for was how rusty he was going to be and how long it was going to take him to get back to where we needed him to be for us to be a productive football team. It really never happened in 2013, and so we suffered because of that. And there was a lot of dysfunction going on in the front office, and there was a power struggle internally. It was ugly. It was a mess. And we had a slew of injuries, and it just snowballed. It went downhill quickly, and it all culminated in a 3-13 mark. And the worst part about the season and the way that it unfolded is the fact that we don't get to reap the benefits of being a bad football team. It's one thing when you stink, okay? But at least you can say, well, hell, we'll get a high draft pick. At least there's some solace in being a bad football team. There's no solace for us. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. It's a train, okay? A train that hit us smack dab in the middle of our forehead because we don't have a first-round pick. So being bad did not benefit us right away. Now, it will benefit us in later rounds in the draft. That second round pick is like a first round pick because it's so high in the second round. So you're still going to get a very good football player, but it's not number 2 overall good. And so you kind of feel a certain way about us not having a first round pick, but that's the price you pay for going out and trying to find a franchise quarterback. And if you don't have one of those, you don't have a chance in this league. So if you ask me, I'd do the trade over 10 times. So I'm not mad about what we got. I just didn't expect us to be that bad. When we made the trade, I was fine with it. You know why? Because I said to myself, that pick that you're going to get, that first round pick, it's going to be 26. It's going to be 28. Maybe even 32. If we push all the right buttons and it's a perfect storm, we'll win the Super Bowl. So that pick isn't going to be worth anything to me. I'm not going to miss that pick whatsoever because it's going to be a playoff pick. It's going to be in the 20s. It's going to be in the 30s. So I'm not going to miss that first round pick at all. That was my rationale. That's the way I made myself feel good about that trade. But to have us go to the postseason and really validate the trade in certain respects, and then the very next year after that, go right back and make that first round pick a number 2 overall selection, that sickens every Redskins fan to the core of their stomach. So, yes, absolutely last year was frustrating for more than one reason. But look, last year is last year. It's done. It's over. I think that's a lesson that everyone can learn from in terms of not getting too high, not getting too low. And I had a high school coach, had a saying, I don't know if he stole it from someone or not, but his thing was, nothing's as good as it seems, nothing's as bad as it seems. Somewhere in between, reality falls. And as Redskins fans, we always need to keep that perspective that somewhere in between, reality falls. We got so drunk off the Robert Griffin III Kool-Aid in 2012 that we were on cloud nine. We were somewhere up in the sky. You couldn't even see us. You couldn't tell us anything. We were going to win the NFC East, and we were the best team in our division, and the sky was the limit for us. And so we didn't even think, hey, we could actually fall back to the pack. We could actually be last place in our division. We could be one of the worst teams in the league. We could have dysfunction and turmoil like the days of Vinny Serrato and the circus. We could not fathom something like that happening to us again in DC because we were so far gone off that Robert Griffin III Kool-Aid that we were drunk. Look, serve me up another cup, okay? Give me another cup, fill it up to the brim. I'm good. So what we got to keep in mind as Redskins fans is that we've been to some really low points. Last year was another one of those really, really low points as a Redskins fan. And we've seen and been through some really tough times as Redskins fans. We got to make sure we put everything in its proper perspective, okay? Winning a division, getting a home playoff game was great. And we should have felt good going into the next season, but you needed to temper your expectations because Robert Griffin III was injured. And those same Redskins fans that got extremely frustrated last year and you don't know what Robert Griffin III is, you feel like you're kind of complexed as to what he is as a quarterback. All I ask of you is that you give everything a chance to breathe. And you let this guy go out and play the quarterback position. You give Jay Gruden a chance. And look, if we get off to a slow start in 2014, and if they don't make some of the moves you're looking for as a fan, because I'm going to talk about moves that I think we need to make and positions we need to attack and guys that are in free agency that would fit what we're trying to do and things of that nature. We'll go over the list of free agents that the Redskins have here in a second. And so if they don't go and target after a guy you're looking for and a guy you think would fit in perfectly, if they don't make moves that you think are smart moves, trust in the system. That's all I ask from every Redskins fan out there is trust in the system. We haven't had a front office that you could trust in a long time. I feel like we're starting to build that kind of rapport, and we've got to trust what these guys do, okay? All the good franchises, sometimes the fan base, they don't always agree with what moves are made, but trust in your GM, trust in your front office that they're going to make the right moves and do what's best because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We only see what they allow us to see. So just trust in the process. That's my that's my favorite phrase, okay? Trust in the process. If you're a good franchise, it will work itself out in the end. Trust in the process. You know, the Packers, they make tough decisions. The Ravens, they make tough decisions. The Steelers, they make tough decisions. Is it always the right decision? Maybe, maybe not. But the Patriots, the Colts, they make decisions. They go forward with it, and you have to just trust the process. If you do that, you'll find yourself coming out on top 9 times out of 10. So as a Redskins fan, from one to another, I'm asking you to trust the process. Let's talk about the free agents for this Redskins team coming up in 2014, and we'll go over the list. I'll comb over it one by one. I'll breeze through some of the players because we don't need to spend a lot of time on them. Others, I'll spend a little bit more time on them. But let's go through the list of free agents for this Redskins football team in 2014. So you look at the list: Rex Grossman, Desmond Briscoe, and you know what? Let me just go over them as I'm reading their name. Rex Grossman, we don't need him back. The reason why he was a Redskin for the last 3 or 4 seasons is because he knew the Kyle Shanahan system, and that went back to the Houston days. Well, guess what? Kyle Shanahan is no longer our offensive coordinator, so hence Rex Grossman isn't a guy that is of any use to us anymore. But good thing is, nobody else around the league, unless Kyle Shanahan wants to call him up and bring him out to Cleveland, Nobody else around the league is going to fight us for Rex Grossman. So guess what? Rex, you keep your phone next to you. We've got your number on speed dial. If we have any issues with our quarterback situation, you'll be the first one we call. He'll be back. He'll be a camp arm most likely. And it depends on how our new head coach, Jay Gruden, feels about him. If he feels like this guy's a great influence and someone that he wants to keep around, he'll be a camp arm. He'll be around in July. But if he feels like he needs to go out and get some younger guys or a veteran somewhere else, he won't be around. And that's the way that'll happen. But as far as the necessity, Rex is not needed. Keep your phone close by. We'll call you if we need you. You look at Desmond Briscoe, he's done. There's no more purpose for Desmond Briscoe here in Washington. He had a lot of potential. You saw it in the preseason. You saw flashes. Never came to fruition in Washington. He's gone. We won't miss him. You look at another guy on this list, Joshua Morgan. You know what? I was a big Joshua Morgan fan in 2012. When we won the division, he was a huge part of what we did in that season. He blocked well. He was tough. He caught the football well. He was the direct opposite in 2013. Now, I don't know if that was a byproduct of Mike Shanahan really kind of shooting down his confidence, benching him, not making him active. I really don't know if it was more of a mental drain on Joshua Morgan in 2013, but he did not perform at the level that I was used to seeing from him. He dropped passes. He wasn't effective when he was on the field. And so I think his time in Washington is up as well. I think we're going to move on from Joshua Morgan and move on to greener pastures at the receiver position. You look at another guy, Santana Moss. This one is a biggie because do you want Santana Moss back? Don't you want Santana Moss back? You know what? I struggle with that back and forth. He's a Redskin. He's a core skin. I love Santana. I love the intangibles that he brings, not only on the field, but in the locker room. But last year was tough for me with Santana because he dropped the football a lot. And there were a lot of mental lapses with Santana. And that's not what I'm used to from my Tana man. With Tana, I know if I throw it to him on third down, he's going to catch the football. He's going to make some tough plays for me. He's going to do all the little dirty things. He's going to be a great guy in the locker room, a team leader, and he was all of those things last year. But on the field, his production was sketchy at best. And so I'm more inclined to give a guy like Nick Williams an opportunity. I'm more inclined to go in the draft and find a young guy. I'm more inclined to say, hey, let's give a bigger role to Aldrick Robertson than to bring back Santana Moss. And it pains me to say this, but if we don't bring back Santana Moss, I wouldn't shed a tear. I love my Tana man, but I think he'd be better served off somewhere else than with us. Like if he went to New England, he'd fit in great there. You know, if he went somewhere else with a veteran team, veteran quarterback, where they just need a piece here, a piece there, he'd be fine in that role. In Washington, where we're trying to build something, I just don't know if he fits in our plans anymore. And so, pains me to say this, but I think we can move on from Santana Moss. I don't know how you feel about that. I'd love to hear your feedback on Santana Moss. But I think his time in Washington might be up as well. You look at the next guy on the list, Fred Davis. I don't even need to talk about Fred Davis. He's no longer a Washington Redskin. He will not be a Washington Redskin moving forward. End of discussion. You look at the next guy on the list, Chris Baker. He's been re-signed. I'll talk about him in a little bit. Rob Jackson is next up. I felt like it was a Rob Jackson versus Brian Orakpo situation. If we didn't get Orakpo back, then Rob Jackson needed to be back. If we got Orakpo back, then Rob Jackson wasn't going to be back. We all know Brian Orakpo was slapped with the franchise tag. He'll be around for at least one more year. And so by virtue of that, I think Rob Jackson is no longer going to be a member of the Washington Redskins, which is a shame because I like Rob Jackson. I felt like the more he played, the more effective he was. And every time Big Play Rob got on the field, he made a big play, which is why I dubbed him Big Play Rob. But I didn't think he got enough opportunities on the field in 2013. I wanted to see some sub packages last season with Ryan Kerrigan, Brian Orakpo, Rob Jackson, Brandon Jenkins, all on the field at the same time. We saw a semblance of that in the preseason against Tennessee. We got pressure, we got sacks, and then we just didn't see it. We didn't see overload blitzes. We didn't see a lot of the things that I thought we were going to see that we got a taste of in the preseason. And I thought Rob Jackson was robbed of some playing time in 2013. So you really didn't get to see what he could be in this defense. And I don't know if he'll be back or not. I just don't see them investing more money into a position. We already signed him back to a 1-year deal last year. I don't see us doing that again. And with Kerrigan, him coming up soon, I think his deal will be up next year and having to pay him as well. I just don't see them investing more money into that outside linebacker position. So I think we'll be going into the draft and trying to develop Brandon Jenkins, which I want to see happen. And so we'll see what happens. But I just don't expect Rob Jackson back. I'd love to see him come back. I would. I really would. But I just don't see it happening. I'd love to. I mean, have we never thought about trying this guy inside either? I mean, he just seems like a guy that you could move around on this defense. And we need help at inside linebacker. Why not give this guy a look at inside linebacker? Maybe they've already done this and they didn't like what they saw and he's not a natural bender and he's not fluid inside. I don't know what the situation is, but I think we can be more versatile with what we have. I just would love to see Rob Jackson be back on his team. But let's move on to the next guy. Brian Orakpo. We all know the situation there. He was slapped with the franchise tag. I'll talk about him more a little bit later. Daryl Tapp. I don't want Daryl Tapp back. He doesn't serve a purpose. I feel like we can go younger. We can go cheaper. We can go more athletic. I don't want Daryl Tapp back. You look at the next guy, Nick Barnett. Veteran, solid guy on the inside. But again, I'm looking to get younger. I'm looking to get more athletic inside with London Fletcher retiring and Perry Riley being a free agent. I want to get younger. I want to get hungrier inside. I don't want to get older and slower. We just got away from that with London now with him retiring. I want to upgrade that position, and I want to do it with some young, fresh legs and talent. Don't want to go back down that road again and stick an older guy back in the middle of our defense. So no to Nick Barnett. You look at the next guy, Brian Keel. I'd love to have Brian Keel back. He's a core special teamer. He does all the little things, all the intangibles on your football team. Great guy in the locker room. I would love to have Brian Keel back. And last year, I think we found out the importance of core special teamers. He's a core special teamer. I think we'd be a very smart team, and it would be in our best interest to bring Brian Keel back. I hope that they find a way to squeeze this guy in because he's a solid player and a great special teams player, and we need all the special teams players we can get. You look at another guy, Perry Riley. Look, it's no secret. I want Perry Riley back. I've talked about Perry Riley last year. I've been talking about Perry Riley all offseason, and I want Perry Riley back. And look, I've seen articles where they're talking about Pro Football Focus had him rated the 46th best inside linebacker out of 52, and London Fletcher was 52nd. Hey, you can keep all those numbers. This is our guy. This is our guy, okay? You can tell me what you want about him and what he doesn't do well and what he's our guy. This is our stuff. This is homegrown stuff, okay? How many times are we going to allow homegrown product to go and flourish elsewhere? Remember Ryan Clark? That was our guy. That was our stuff, okay? Remember Antonio Pierce? That was our guy. That was our stuff. I don't want to watch our stuff go elsewhere and become the player that we groomed them to be and allow them to flourish elsewhere. Perry Riley's on the cusp of becoming a really, really good linebacker in this league. I don't want to watch him blossom somewhere else. That's our stuff. He needs to be back in DC. Sign Perry Riley back to this football team. You look at the next guy, EJ Biggers. That was nice. That was fun. Now it's done. We need to move on from EJ Biggers. You look at the next guy on the list, D'Angelo Hall. He's been re-signed. I'll talk about him a little bit later. Let's move on. Josh Wilson. He's interesting because I've got my days with Josh Wilson. I've got my weeks with Josh Wilson. I look at Josh Wilson and he makes a play and he gets me excited. And I'm like, see, that's why I want you on the team, Josh. That's why we need you on the team, Josh. And then Josh has a week where he gets beat 2 or 3 times. He's not close. He's not looking for the football. He picks up a pass interference. And I'm like, see, that's why I don't want Josh on the team anymore. And so I've got my weeks. I've got my days where Josh is supposed to be a Redskin. And then I've got my times where I'm like, hey, Josh, you got to go, man. You got to go. And so I'm conflicted about Josh. But I tell you what, that guy gives you maximum effort when he's on the field. I like Josh Wilson. I think if the number is right, and the situation opens itself up to him coming back, I think you should bring Josh Wilson back. I like Josh Wilson a lot. And I like the effort that he brings to the table. And is he the best corner? No. But for the number that I think we should be able to get him back at and what we need at the cornerback, we don't need him to start. We don't even need him to be our nickel. We need him to be like a fourth option at corner. And you know, teams run these wide open spread offenses where they're putting 3, 4, 5 receivers on the field at a time. So he'll still see a lot of action on the field if he's our fourth corner. And I think that's what he needs to be paid, fourth corner money. And so I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily to bring Josh Wilson back. I actually would like to see him come back onto the football team. You look at another guy, Reed Doughty. I'm a huge Reed Doughty fan. If you've been watching me over the last year and a half, you know how I feel about Reed Doughty. And the thing I love about Reed Doughty is that I can rely on him. You know, all these safeties that we have on the roster, you can't count on them for one reason or another, whether they're injury prone or they're out of position or they miss a lot of tackles. Reed Doughty is accountable. I know if I tell Reed Doughty, get 20 yards of depth, Reed Doughty is going to get 20 yards of depth. If I tell Reed Doughty, hey, I need you to come down in the box and stop this guy from gaining 5 yards, Reed Doughty is going to tackle him at 3.5 yards. I feel confident. Yeah, he's got his limitations. You don't want Reed Doughty in one-on-one coverage. You don't want Reed Doughty covering anybody's tight end necessarily. But I know if I ask Reed Doughty to be here, he's going to be there where he's supposed to be when I need him to be there. And so I can count on Reed Doughty on special teams. I can count on Reed Doughty in a pinch. I don't want Reed Doughty starting. You don't want Reed Doughty starting. But when we need Reed Doughty to start for a 2-week stretch, he's there and he's going to do his job to the best of his abilities. He's a core Redskin. He's a core special teamer. I love Reed Doughty. I want Reed Doughty back. And I know that's not going to go over well with a lot of you guys, but I do not care. I'd love to see Reed Doughty back in the burgundy and gold. You look at Jose Gums. He was re-signed. Talk about that here in a second. And Brandon Merriweather. Much like E.J. Biggers, it was nice. It was fun. But his run as the Washington Redskins is now done. And so, you know what? I was disappointed in Brandon Merriweather, to be honest with you, because I was looking for the Brandon Merriweather that was the 2-time Pro Bowler in New England. And what I got was the Brandon Merriweather that got pushed out of New England, that went to Chicago and didn't fit in, and they got rid of him too. And so now I feel like we just need to go ahead and move on. Kind of cleanse that safety position somewhat, you know, minus Reed Doughty. You know how I feel about Reed. And kind of start over. We got Phillip Thomas coming off of injury. Want to see what he's about. You know, we still have Jose Gums. I just talked about him being re-signed onto the team. And so we still have Bakari Rambo. And I would love to bring Reed Doughty back and then add another safety and be done with it. And so that's the way I feel about the safety position. And I don't think Brandon Merriweather is a part of how I feel we need to be going in the direction we need to be going in moving forward. So that's the Redskins free agents right there. No restricted free agents on this list. And so as you look at this team, let's talk about the guys that we've re-signed already. Big Swaggy is back. And talking about, of course, Chris Baker, that was a necessity. That needed to happen. Again, another one of these guys that you're watching him grow right in front of your eyes, and you don't want to ship him off somewhere else and watch him fully materialize into a Pro Bowl player elsewhere, okay? We did all the work. We put in all of the time and effort with this guy to watch him grow as a football player. Let's see that full blossom happen here in Washington. So it was great to see him get that deal, and I think he's going to give us some flexibility along that defensive line. Great to have Chris Baker, a.k.a. Big Swaggy, back in the mix. Jose Gums. He showed us some things late in the season when we had all the injuries and we were playing musical chairs at the safety position. He came in, had some picks, made some tackles, showed some athleticism. I want to see more from Jose Gums. Is he a starter? I'm not sure. I don't know about that. I can't tell you definitively yes or no that he's a starter in this league, but he looks like a very competent backup, that's for certain. And so I want to see more from Jose Gums. I think the Redskins organization feels the same way. That's why they re-signed him to the team. You look at another guy that we have re-signed in this offseason, and that is D'Angelo Hall. And I thought that was a necessity as well. Late in the season, I pretty much all season long, I thought the guy had a stellar season. I mean, he was by far our best guy in the secondary. It wasn't even close. And at times, he was the best player on the defensive side of the football. I mean, D'Angelo Hall, it's funny because it seems like he's been in the league forever, but he's only 30 years old, so he's still got some football left in him. And he's one of those guys that I could easily see making a transition to safety. So even if you're not enamored with his cover skills and they start to wane a little bit, you can even move him over to safety and have him around the field like a Charles Woodson type of player because he's a playmaker. And if he can see what the quarterback's looking at, he can go make plays on the football. And so I think D'Angelo Hall is a versatile player that you want to keep around. And for a secondary that's not very good, he's definitely a guy that you wanted to have back. And so good to see him back. At $4 million per year, don't think that's a lot of money to pay him. I don't have a problem with it. 4 years, $17 million, not a lot of money to keep him around. I think that's a solid move, bringing D'Angelo Hall back to the burgundy and gold. And finally, Brian Orakpo slapped with the franchise tag. The Redskins were reportedly mulling over that decision. I don't blame them because all last year I was saying, okay, I was mentally preparing myself for the departure of Brian Orakpo. And then here comes this late season run where he just goes off on this tear and he's sacking quarterbacks. And the part that frustrates me the most with Brian Orakpo is when you need it, you don't get it. When it's irrelevant, that's when he gives it. And that's what frustrates me with Brian Orakpo is when we were playing the Cowboys, 4th and 7 from the 11-yard line or 4th and goal from the 11, whatever it was. When we needed Tony Romo to be sacked, when we needed pressure on Tony Romo, where was he? That's what I'm mad about. When we needed to get a stop against the Minnesota Vikings from going down and beating us in that game, where was he? I mean, and that's the frustrating part, is when the game's on the line, when it's a critical juncture of the game, when you got to have it, you need big-time players to step up and make big-time plays, and we don't get that from Brian Orakpo. Now, last year, you could argue the slow start was a mental block from the pec injury, and when you have two of them in successive years, yeah, it mentally plays tricks on you because you don't know what your limitations are. You're told by the doctors, hey, you're free to go, man. Go let it all hang out on the field. But mentally, you're telling yourself, if I stick my arm out there like I did against the Bears in the preseason, it's going to pop again, and I'm going to get injured again. And so you've got to slowly work yourself back and mentally tell yourself, I'm good. I can do whatever I want on this field, and I don't have any limitations. And so I think it took him legitimately until about week 10 to really realize that I'm healthy. I'm good. I don't have to worry about my pec. Just go out here and play football. And once he did that, he started to make some impact plays. But again, I just want to see them more consistently. You know, he's a guy that gets 3 sacks in one game, 2 sacks in another game, 1 sack here, a sack and a half there, and that's his total for the year. And you look up and he's got 10, but it's not a 10 that you can count on week in and week out. It's a 10 that comes in spurts. And so what it all boils down to, though, is at the end of the day, much like Perry Riley, I don't want to see another homegrown player playing somewhere else. Okay? We don't have a lot of elite stuff on this team, and I'm not saying Brian Orakpo is elite, but he's all that we got. You know what I'm saying? He's all that we've got. Okay? Ryan Kerrigan is nice. Ryan Kerrigan isn't a 10-sack-a-season guy. Right? I love Ryan Kerrigan because he's more of an all-around player than Brian Orakpo is. He's better in the run game. He impacts the game more than Brian Orakpo does because he picks off passes, he deflects passes, and he gets pressure on the quarterback. And he has a knack for knocking the football out of the quarterback's hand even when he doesn't get his hands actually on the quarterback. So he impacts the game to me more than Orakpo does. But as a natural pass rusher, Brian Orakpo is better. And so he's the best that we've got. You know, and the bad part about it is we complain about him, but I tell you right now, if he hit the free agent market, if he were to hit the free agent market, there'd be 7 to 10 teams beating down his doorstep for his services on their football team, which tells you how good of a football player that he is and his value in the National Football League. So if we were to let him walk, it wouldn't be smart on our part. It just wouldn't be. And so it took me a while to come to the realization, because as a Redskins fan, we're so disappointed that he's not better, because we know that he can be better than what he is. We're looking for a guy that impacts the game like a Clay Matthews, like a DeMarcus Ware, that gets after the quarterback, and when their team needs it the most, those guys step up. We're looking for the same thing from a Rapp-Ho. We just haven't received it yet. And so by virtue of that, we're disappointed, and we're like, hey, he can go, but you really don't mean it. Because if you realize that we don't have the most talent, and giving away something that is homegrown, that is potentially going to be elite in the future, nothing would make me more upset. Nothing would frustrate me and infuriate me more than to go see Brian Rapp-Ho end up on the Oakland Raiders and be a 13 and a half, 14 sack guy for the next 3 years. Nothing would make me want to pull my hair out, and I don't have a lot of it. Nothing would make me want to pull my hair out more than watching Brian Rapp-Ho excel somewhere else. That would make me sick to my stomach. Right now, just thinking about it, I'm throwing up in my mouth. And so, if keeping him around for just one more year, just to see what he does, is what we have to do, then so be it. But really, it's not feasible to keep him around at that $11.45 million number. We've got to work out a long-term deal with this guy, and we've got to make it work. The only thing that could make me regret keeping Brian Rapp-Ho around is if he continued to get injured. If he's healthy and he's getting 8.5 and he's getting 10 and 11 sacks, I'm fine with that. I'd rather have him here and doing that here than going somewhere else and having the potential for him to get 13 sacks. Just knowing that he could go somewhere else and maybe blow up sickens me. It sickens me. And so whether you like it or not, the Redskins didn't have a choice. They needed to bring Brian Rapp-Ho back. They needed to bring him back. For the sake of telling other guys in the locker room, hey, if you go out and you ball out, you're going to be rewarded here in D.C., here with the Redskins, not elsewhere. It's time for us to stop going out and paying other guys for what they did with other franchises here and not paying our guys for what they're doing here with us. That time has gone. It's past. Now we got to start keeping our stuff in-house. And that's why Brian Rapp-Ho being back with the Redskins was a necessity. It was a necessary evil. You don't like it, so what? It was a necessary evil. So let's move on now to team needs. And you look at this Redskins team: wide receiver, offensive guard, right tackle, defensive line, middle linebacker, cornerback, safety. I thought Jay Gruden, our head coach, said it best at the combine. Holes, we've got holes everywhere. We've got holes that we have to address as a football team. And it's not just offensively. We've got holes everywhere. Well said. Well said. So, I just named about 7 positions. If I'm not mistaken, there's about 11 on the field. So, that's a lot of holes. That's a lot of holes. So, let's start on the offensive side of football. Wide receiver. We need a big receiver. And our second round pick overall number 34, needs to be a wide receiver. And it needs to be a big receiver. I don't want a 6'1" or 5'11" fast guy. Got those guys already. Got those guys. I got Pierre Garçon, explosive. I got Aldrick Robinson, 5'11" guy, explosive. Got that already. I'm looking for 6'3", 6'4", 6'5". Forget about Mike Evans. We're not getting our hands on him. Forget about Kelvin Benjamin. That's who I was drooling over last year. I wanted Kelvin Benjamin all last year. That's the only thing I was thinking about. Man, I can't wait to get my hands on Kelvin Benjamin. That's not happening either. So forget about those guys. We got to look elsewhere. And a guy that I was looking at, and I was thinking maybe, Allen Robinson out of Penn State. He disappointed me in ways unimaginable at the combine. He actually scared me away. I don't know if I want Allen Robinson anymore out of Penn State. Either way you slice it, I've got to go back, do more homework to see what's out there because we need a big receiver. We need a big target. And this is my way of thinking, okay? At 32, it needs to be one of two positions, okay? This is the only way I'll be satisfied with pick 34, all right? If it's a big receiver, 6'3" or better, or it's one of the first two guards off the board. And really, the guy that I want is Xavier Su'a-Filo out of UCLA. He fits our scheme. He fits in with our offensive line, extremely athletic. That's the guy that I want. You give me a top two guard, or you give me a big receiver at 34. So that'll take care of two needs right there, one of two needs, receiver or guard. Because you look at our roster, at receiver, we got stuff. But Hankerson, I think we all know what he is now, okay? Everybody wanted Hank to be something that he's not. Hank isn't a playmaker. He's a solid receiver, questionable hands, and not a guy that's going to separate himself from anybody else on the roster. He's just another receiver, and that's fine. We drafted him in the third round. That's what you get with a third-round receiver sometimes. You get another receiver on your football team. That's fine. I like Hank. Want to keep him around, but we need a guy that's a difference maker in the red zone. We need a guy that we can throw a fade up to. We need a guy that on 3rd and 7 is going to go up and make a play. We need a guy that when Robert decides to chuck it in one-on-one coverage down the field, he can climb the ladder and make a play over a 5'11", 6-foot corner. That's what we're lacking in DC. That's what I'm looking for at pick 34. If we can't get it there, then the third-round pick needs to be a receiver. But to me, your first two picks in the draft needs to be guard and receiver. In what order? I don't care. Second, third, second, doesn't matter to me. Guard, receiver. In that order, fine. Receiver, guard, in that order, that's fine. I don't care. It just needs to be one of those two in the first two picks for the Redskins. So, because I'm done with Chris Chester. Finished with him. And I expect the Redskins to probably cut bait with him at some point as well. So, if they want to keep him around and they feel like the cap number's not that high and he can be a guy that's a backup, that's fine. I just don't need him starting anymore. And Will Montgomery, we could upgrade center, but we don't have to right now. It's not that big of a need actually right now. And so I'm good. If you're good, I'm good with Will Montgomery sticking around at center. But right tackle needs to be addressed as well. This draft is so deep at tackle that we could get a starter in the 3rd round. Literally, it's that deep. And 4 or 5 of them are coming off the board in the 1st round. That's how deep this draft is, that you'll still be able to get a potential starter in the 3rd round. So I'll be interested to see what we decide to do with this offensive line situation, because we need help at right tackle with Columbus and right guard with Chris Chester. I think we're fine at left guard with Lichtensteiger. I think we're fine at center with Will Montgomery. And we're great at left tackle with Trent Williams. So that's looking at the offensive line. At receiver, I just talked about needing a big target. We re-signed Aldrick Robinson in the offseason. Pierre Garçon, love him. Hank isn't going anywhere. Those are 3 guys that are going to be on the roster. I don't know what Nick Williams is going to do, how they feel about him. I'd love to see him get a chance. And then I think you add a big receiver in the draft and be done with the receiver position. So now you go over to the other side of the football and to the defense. Defensive end. I don't know how they feel about Stephen Bowen moving forward. I don't know if his number is too big and they want to get rid of him. We got no production out of him last year. We went from 7.5 sacks in the first year to no sacks last year. No, he was dealing with a slew of injuries. And maybe if he gets healthy, he's going to be a force for us again. But we need more production on the defensive line. We got rid of Adam Carricker. That's a situation where he might be back. We just need to see him get healthy and feel good about him being healthy before we bring him back. But don't be surprised if we target a defensive lineman in free agency like a Linval Joseph or like an Arthur Jones from Baltimore. Those are guys that can come in and immediately. I'd love to get Arthur Jones because I thought he was solid for the Ravens, got pressure on the quarterback occasionally, but was stout at the point of attack in the run game. Love to get my hands on Arthur Jones and upgrade this defensive line. At linebacker, we need inside linebacker help. That's no secret. London Fletcher gone. Perry Riley's still a free agent. We need to get him back. And Keenan Robinson, we don't know what he is because he keeps getting injured. I'd love to see Keenan Robinson come out and ball at middle linebacker and solve our problems. And put him next to Perry Riley and have a young nucleus inside at the linebacker. And have a young linebacking corps in general. And have these guys ball out for the next 3-4 years as a group collectively. But we don't know what Keenan Robinson is. We don't even know if this guy's any good yet. And that's the frustrating part because he keeps getting injured. And so he needs to stay healthy. We need to see what we have at middle linebacker. But we can't rely on him. We got to go do something there, whether it's through the draft. And I think it's going to be in the draft ultimately with about a 4th or a 5th round selection. I see us drafting a middle linebacker and trying to bolster that position a little bit. Also, you look at corner and safety, of course. Cornerback, I don't think that's a dire need anymore. I think we're going to be fine with DA. And even if you want D'Angelo out in the slot or moving around as a chess piece at safety in the slot out wide, I still think we're going to target the cornerback market anyway. And so I feel really good about what we're going to do with our money in free agency. We're going after a big name fish in free agency, and there are a lot of really good corners available. I think a guy that we're enamored with is Aqib Talib, and I'm so lukewarm on him because of the injuries, because of his off-the-field issues, and because I feel like it's fool's gold to think that he's a revamped player. I think he fit in New England because of the Patriot way. And if he doesn't have that type of structure, and we all know our locker room isn't the most well-structured, if he doesn't have that type of structure, he's going to act out again. His mom is going to start acting up again, and we're going to have problems with him. Not to mention, he's the guy that gets injured often, and I just don't know how I feel about him. He's still relatively young, still one of the better corners in the league. I just don't know if the baggage that comes with Aqib Talib is what we need in D.C. right now. I don't know. I don't know about him. But I tell you what, if we got him, he'd be a hell of an upgrade to our cornerback position. We're going to do something at corner. That is for certain. I'm not worried about cornerback anymore because I feel like we're starting to round that position out and we're starting to get solid players and production out of the cornerback position. Safety is where we still have issues because we don't know anything. We have all question marks at the safety position because we don't know what Phillip Thomas is. We don't know what we're getting out of any of our safeties. We don't know what we have at safety. We don't know what we can ask of our safeties because we don't know anything about our safety position as a whole. And so we don't know anything about safety. We don't know if we have a free. We don't know if we have a strong. We don't know if we have guys that can cover in space. We don't have anything that we can hang our hat on at safety. And so that is a major issue for us. We've got stuff. We just don't know what any of that stuff can provide for us at the safety position. So we got a lot of questions. Not a lot of answers right now at the safety position. That's also something that I would love to attack. And look, I like my corners. I like my whole secondary well seasoned. I like my beef up front fresh. I like fresh beef, meaning I like young players. I like my beef fresh. I like younger guys up front. Younger, they're hungrier, they're stronger, they're quicker. I love fresh. I love fresh beef, okay? I like my corners, however, well seasoned. I don't like fresh. I don't like those young guys, green behind the ears, breath smelling like Similac. I don't like my corners young, okay? I like my corners well seasoned. Put a little bit of salt and pepper on them. They taste a little seasoned. I like my guys with a little bit of veteran experience. They've seen all the route combinations. They know how to play this game. They know how to sit down and zone coverage, and they know how to read the quarterback's eyes and jump certain routes. I like my cornerbacks well seasoned because they've already made their mistakes. Okay? They've already made the bonehead mistakes, miscommunications, being nosy in the backfield, getting beat, learning the speed of the NFL game. Yeah, they've already taken care of all of that, and they know how to play this game at a really high level. That's why I like my corners and my safeties well seasoned. So I want to go out and get me a nice seasoned safety. And I know I've heard everybody asking about TJ Ward and Jarius Byrd. I don't want TJ Ward. You know why? Because TJ Ward's like another safety. I want two safeties that can be interchangeable, can drop down, help you in the box, and can drop back and play a deep half. I want some guys that are interchangeable. I don't want a guy that's basically another linebacker, which is what TJ Ward effectively is. If you've already got a guy like Earl Thomas in your secondary that can man up the back half of your defense and you don't have to worry about him and he's got range and can run sideline to sideline and cover up both halves of the field, then great. Give me a TJ Ward. But we don't have that. We don't know what we have at safety. I need interchangeable parts. I'd love to get Jarius Byrd, but he's going to cost us way too much money that we don't have. So if you're thinking about Jarius Byrd, forget about Jarius Byrd. Forget about it, because he's not coming to DC. But a guy that wouldn't cost you as much, and he balled out of control last year, is a guy in Carolina, is Mike Mitchell. Eminem in Carolina. Raiders spent a second-round pick on a guy that most GMs, scouts, and talent evaluators had as a 6th-round grade. Okay? He played like a second-round safety last year. About 4 or 5 picks. Was an enforcer in that secondary, hard hitter. Look, I don't know if that was an aberration or what, but Mike Mitchell would fit perfectly in Washington because he not only can play the run, is a physical defender, but he also can make plays on the football and catch it and do something with it after he gets it in his hands. I think that's a guy that the Redskins will be looking to target early on in the free agency process. Look, if you're thinking big picture with these guys, Jarius Byrd, TJ Ward, stop it. Stop it. Look smaller picture. Look Mike Mitchell. That's the guy the Redskins could go after. Look, you know who else I would like to talk to? Malcolm Jenkins from the New Orleans Saints. You don't want Malcolm Jenkins? I'd gladly take him off your hands. So you need to look at guys like that and less at guys like TJ Ward and Jarius Byrd, because they're going to cost too much money for a team that is looking to kind of be cost conservative. And you know our GM is very frugal. He's very cost efficient. He's not going to go overpay for one of those guys. The Bills made an offer to Jarius Byrd to make him the highest paid safety for a portion of his contract, and he said no. He's looking to be the highest paid safety in the league for the duration of his contract. We can't match that. We don't have that kind of money, and I don't want to spend that kind of money on that guy. Get some other guys in here. I'm telling you right now, narrow your focus onto guys like Mike Mitchell and Malcolm Jenkins. But one of those guys, if not both of those guys, could definitely help us. And then I think if you bring one of those guys in with some of the stuff that we have, and I really like Phillip Thomas, and I think if he can stay healthy, he could be the answer to some of our safety woes. You team him up with one of the guys in free agency, I think we might be fixing this secondary a lot faster than a lot of people think we could be able to do. So there you have it. The Washington Redskins in free agency. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to spend some money, but it's going to be money well spent. Again, trust the process, okay? This isn't like the old days where we went and threw money at guys foolishly and we were paying for past play of players and not future play, okay? What we're going to be paying for now is past play being a future indicator of what we're getting from these players. And we're going to spend our money very shrewdly, and we're going to go out. I don't even know if that's a word. Sounds good though. And we're going to go out and we're going to make some things happen in free agency. We're going to make this team better. And what holes we have left after we've spent our money in free agency, we're going to attack those needs through the draft. And I feel damn good about where we're going in this offseason. So buckle up, guys. It's going to be a fast and fun ride in free agency. That's going to gear us up for the draft. And afterwards, then we'll know pretty much what we're looking to do and what we're targeting in the draft as we narrow in on a lot of our needs through free agency. So what we don't get done in free agency, you know, we'll take care of it through the draft. And so, to me, still a goal of mine is to take care of home and bringing back Perry Riley and then working out a long-term deal with a Rackpo, bringing that cap number down, which will allow us to go out and spend more money in free agency. So there you have it. I'm a Redskins fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Redskins spirit will never die. My Redskins spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail! to our, yours, all of our Washington Redskins. Have fun. Enjoy free agency. Trust the process. I'll see you all next week. I'll be covering free agency like a madman. It's not the last time you'll see this pretty face. See you next week.
While you're here, go ahead and sub up. The Redskins Report.